The Love, Life, and Lose Weight podcast will teach you the art and science of changing your habits around food. If you know what to do, but can't figure out why you're just not doing it, this is the right podcast for you. I'm your host, Advanced Certified Weight and Life Coach, Heather Beardsley. I've helped hundreds of women just like you figure out how to think and eat like a normal eater, lose weight, and love life on the journey to goal weight and beyond. Hi, welcome to episode 64. In this episode, I'm going to give you 3 tools to help you break free from overwhelm, overplanning, and overdoing. Just this morning, I had 2 client calls that focused on absolute frustration and overwhelm with like the household division of labor within my clients' family units. It's something that I think a lot of women deal with, not only at home, but also overwhelm with your weight loss and overwhelm at work. I mean, this can sort of slide in all of the places in your life. And that's because overwhelm is a feeling that we generate within ourselves by our habits of how we think about what we're doing and the time we have to do it in. So, if you didn't learn good time hygiene habits of how to think about your number one resource, which is your time and your focus and your attention, then your brain will try to pinch hit and do its best to try to let you know how to accomplish the things that you are thinking that you want to accomplish. So, overwhelm happens when we're thinking in ways that we don't have enough time to do the things that we are thinking we want to get done. And this isn't like unique to anybody. In our 21st century world, we are always going to have a million things that we'd like to do. And we've got to figure out how to only focus on the things that are effective in moving us toward what we want to create in our lives. So, of course, in terms of weight loss, this means putting a particular specific focus on the things that help you with your weight loss and stop fucking around with things that don't help you with your weight loss. So, this means really if you are somebody who is experiencing time scarcity and overwhelm in many areas of your life, you're probably going to need to make weight loss as simple as possible and utilize what's called the Pareto principle, which is only focus on the 20% of things that get you the 80% of results. What I talk about in how I coach weight loss with my clients and what I talk about on my podcast, I've always tried to keep it just to the essentials, which are making decisions ahead of time about what you want to eat. That means making a food plan, not so you can eat virtuous foods, but so that you think strategically about how you're going to feed yourself so that you don't have to worry about those decisions later in the day. This is specifically designed to decrease overwhelm. So, if you are somebody who is making food plans and then stressing yourself out about why you're not following your food plans, we need to simplify this. And, I have some tips to help you with that. I'll circle back to this in a little bit. But back to the overview of overwhelm. Overwhelm is a feeling that's created by how we're thinking about our time and our tasks. So, what most of us do and learn to do when we were young about time management is to make a list. Like we all carry around these little to do lists. Some of them are not so little. I have literally seen like 3 pages of to do lists, and it's like, no wonder we feel overwhelmed. What we need to transition to in today's modern world is a system of prioritization that you can use to only focus on the things that have to be done. See, back when life was simpler in the 70s and 80s, right? We just had our ideas about what we wanted to do and we wrote it on a piece of paper. There was no other way to do it, really. There was no digital writing of anything. There was no phone to write it in, nothing. And life was like simpler. I feel like the to-do lists probably were felt much more manageable. But in this day and age where we live a good part of our lives with our head in a computer and all the things, our life that lives in the digital netherworld, right? That we can't see, your courses that you've signed up with, your meetings that you have online. This is all aspects of your life that lives digitally in some concept in your mind. It's not physical like it used to be. Before, there used to be physical records of everything you kind of had going on. You would have an appointment reminder slip or hey, I missed your call piece of paper. Remember those little like, hey, someone called for you. Here's your slip of paper so you don't remember, so you don't forget it. And these days, things have changed a lot, right? It's so easy to forget to reply to an email. There's no record of your intention to reply back to it. So, what happens is all of these things sort of live in our mindset. Our brain is constantly trying to herd and keep track of all of these little bits and pieces of things that we want to attend to with our time. And then part of it, might live on a list somewhere. Maybe it's in your reminders app on your phone. Maybe it's in your notes app. Maybe it's on your daily plan. Maybe it's scratched also on a piece of paper. And this is not a system. This is what's called a mess, right? And so what's going to happen is for most of us, when overwhelm really starts to become a problem and we start to get paralyzed from it, like you'd think when you start to feel time scarcity and the overwhelm from that, too many things, not enough time to do it in, that it would sort of like motivate us to get started with the things that we need to do. But without a system to help us know what deserves our attention first and when exactly we're going to do it, what happens is we just end up on the couch binge watching Netflix and sitting and, under a blanket of self-loathing because we can't believe we're not doing the things that we need to do. And we're getting further and further down in the hole of time scarcity and overwhelm. Why am I talking about this as your weight coach? Well, because overwhelm will stop you also from doing the things that help you lose weight. Why? Because making a plan for what you're going to eat, pausing in the course of your day before you put food in your mouth to consider whether or not you're even hungry, taking time to be mindful as you eat so that you can know when you've reached your 70 to 80% full, whatever percentage you are wanting to eat to, that will all get pushed to the side as soon as you are in time scarcity and overwhelm because it never feels urgent to make a plan. Other things with immediate consequences are always going to feel more important than doing your weight loss things. Even though, pausing to see if you're hungry takes, I don't know, a moment to, 20 minutes to see if you can detect hunger signals within your body. So these are subtleties and they're never urgent. But when you're in overwhelm, you're always going to be prioritizing other things, which is like, the things that feel like you need to put fires out. So this podcast is really important for those of you who, like I talked about in the previous podcast, oftentimes get real focused on your weight loss, right? We put it first, we prioritize it, and then inevitably life happens. We go into the holiday season, or you go on vacation, or all of a sudden you're redoing your kitchen, you're doing a renovation or something. And these primary things, these disruptors of the typical life that you lead, will conspire to push the priority of weight loss out the door. And that's when you go in these distracted fuck it modes that slow down your progress and take away the weight that you've lost if you're gaining during these fuck it modes. So we need the system, and I'm going to give you these 3 tools today, and it's way simpler than you think. I'm going to give you a system, and what it is a practice. So these are tools that you will use every single day to help you manage your time and your tasks and your in this 21st century modern world where there is always so much more to do than time we have to do it in. So we have to become masters of recognizing what is a waste of time and where we should spend our time. And then also kind of level up our ability to get things done pretty quickly. Okay. So the first tool that's going to help you break free from overwhelm, overplanning, and overdoing is to address the feeling of overwhelm first. So many of my clients who come to me and say, help me, overwhelm has me stuck in a rut of not doing, and I'm sinking further and further into this hole. Well, what I do with them is I ask them a lot of questions about how they're thinking about the things that need to be done. So this is, the nitty gritty of what's at the root of feeling constantly overwhelmed is how you're choosing to think about how you're spending your time. So a lot of us are thinking about time in really victim-y ways, like there's so much to do. I'm never going to get all this done. I'm constantly overwhelmed. There's never enough time. You see how that's all time scarcity. So that all confirms the problem. So what I'm going to have you do, here's my trick. You're going to just assume it's a fact that you're never going to have enough time to do all the things you want to do. We're just going to make that a fact in the world. That's not even the point, is to get everything done. I promise you, of all the things your brain offers you to do, I guarantee you don't want to do all of them. What you want to do is to choose which ones you want to do and then create a schedule for you to do them. So we're making it a fact. There's never enough time to do all the things. So then from there, you're going to choose thoughts about that fact. So if there is a time scarcity and an abundance of tasks, how do I want to think about that? So you could think, every day I prioritize what's most important and say no to the rest. Things like that. So it's ways, building in new ways of thinking about your agency over your time. I want you to become a queen of spending your time wisely on the things that are most important for you to do. So these are habits of thinking. And the next tool I'm going to give you is going to help you make those strategic decisions in an ordered way. Okay. So the first thing is to notice your shitty thoughts about time scarcity. And what you're going to do is notice them, and then you're going to change them up so that they feel like you have more agency over your time. Because really, nobody is a victim of time. We all have agency. Even if you're in the busiest job, you have downtime that you get to make decisions about how you want to spend it. So I always say, like, your hours of your day, it's 24 hours in a day. Let's say you spend $100 for each hour that you spend your time. So if that's true, then you're spending hopefully $700 to $800 a day on sleep. That's what it's worth to you. And then, you're probably spending at least another $800 on your job, your profession, and the investment in going to your job so that you can have a paycheck and earn money to spend on things that you need to survive. And the rest of those hours in between are investments of your time. Spend it wisely. So I'm going to give you what's called an Eisenhower Matrix to help you classify all the tasks that are there for you to do and how to know which ones to attend to and which ones to delegate and which ones to completely just take off your list. Okay. So you're going to spend time noticing the shitty thoughts. Then you're going to respond to the thoughts by leveling up the thinking that puts you more in charge of how you spend your time. So this is like your control and influence over your time. You're going to work on how you think about your time. That will help decrease the amount of overwhelm and increase the amount of confidence that you have about the time that you do have. You see, when you're in time scarcity, what you're doing is you're focusing on what you don't want, which is the fact that you don't have enough time. But that's not even the problem. The problem is you're not focusing and fixing the problem with the time that you do have and what to do with that time. That's where I want your brain to focus on. So when you notice the shitty thinking, just notice it's focusing on the problem, likely, and I want you to focus it on a solution. So if you say, there's never enough time for me to work out, let's say that's the thought, then you're overwhelmed and demoralized because you're thinking, I'm not doing the movement that I said that I would do. So when you notice that thought, I want you to think, okay, well, that's focusing on the problem and what I'm not doing. So what can I do today? Maybe if you just do 10 sit ups, 10 squats, and I don't know, lift weights, do 10 bicep curls each arm, as heavy as you can. Just start there. I remember when I had my shoulder injury last year, I was inactive for a while. I had just gotten into a rut with my own movement, just like I'm talking about. And I noticed like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm lifting a crane when I'm even getting off the potty. And I was like, all right, Heather, it's time. Like I knew I was ready just to start moving. And I knew I needed to make it really simple just to create the slightest momentum in the right direction so I could say that I was doing something. And so I just decided, well, every time I use the bathroom, before I leave the bathroom, I'm going to do 10 squats. And I figure I must use the bathroom. I mean, I'm very highly hydrated. I must use the bathroom at least 5 times a day. So, 5 times 10, that's 50 squats a day. And that's what I started doing. And then that led to me going back to yoga. And that led to me joining P-Volve. Like I joined this thing called P-Volve. And I'm doing that now. And that's how it started. Was I started focusing instead on the problem and started thinking about what I could do, the smallest thing that would create the smallest bit of momentum that I could just keep going. Okay. So that's changing up how you think. That will decrease the feelings of overwhelm that stop you in your tracks. That's your first tool. Your second tool is what I'm calling a Eisenhower Matrix. Maybe you have heard of this before. An Eisenhower Matrix is a prioritization tool that you can use that groups tasks helps you order them by priority. Okay? So it was created by Stephen Covey in his book The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he used President Dwight D. Eisenhower's process to inspire this. So that's where credit is due. It's called an Eisenhower Matrix. I've sort of made it a little bit more specific to weight loss. If you want a copy of this so that you can start working with how to prioritize your tasks to level up what you do with the time that you do have, just go on to Instagram and on any of my posts, just comment the word matrix and I will sign you up for my email list and I'll give you a copy of this matrix for you to use. Okay. So we're going to first step, write down all of your to-do list, everything that you can think of on a separate piece of paper. Just write them all down. Doesn't matter how you do it. That's step one. Step two, to use the matrix, is you're going to classify each task according to one of 4 quadrants on this box that you see here. You're going to take like a square and you're going to divide it into 4 equal boxes. And this is where you're going to classify your tasks according to two values: urgency and importance, and their relative amount of each of depending on the task. So the idea is quadrant 1 and 2 are in the top left and right hand side of your box. This is where you're going to spend most all of your time is in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. Quadrant 1 is going to be all of the tasks that are both urgent and important. So let me give you a further definition. Urgent and important tasks, they require your immediate attention, and they come with pretty immediate consequences for not completing them. So you're going to limit the percentage of your time spent here so that you can avoid overwhelm and burnout. We can't always be spending our time racing to get those fires out. Hopefully, as you use this Eisenhower Matrix more, the percentage of your tasks that are both urgent and important will decrease over time. If you're carrying around a long list and you've been stuck, frozen, and overwhelmed for a while, yeah, you're going to have a lot of urgent and important items. But maybe what you can do in the first few weeks of using your Eisenhower Matrix weekly is you can set aside some extra time just to knock some of these urgent and important items out so that they're down to a manageable level. Or maybe you can enlist some support to get some of these off of your to-do list. The ideal amount of urgent and important things, I think, in my opinion, should not, of the time that you spend, whether it's at work, whether it's on weight loss or whatever, urgent and important things should not be more than a third of your time. If it is, then, DM me because, we need to clean that up. Nobody should be putting out fires all the time unless that's like your chosen job, right? And you want to kind of live in that world. I think for most of us, that can burn you out when urgent and important are more than a third of your time. So these are things like getting groceries. Like, you have to feed yourself, right? That's urgent and it's important. How long can you last without groceries in the house? Like, that's a quadrant 1 item. You're going to prioritize these and you're going to do these as quickly as possible each day first. Okay. Now we're moving over to the second quadrant in the top right. We're going to classify these tasks as not urgent and important. So not urgent and important would be things like your weight loss stuff that you do, making a plan every day, doing your weekly reviews, counting the number of overeats you've had, making the time, setting aside the time to weigh in and look at your data. These things are never going to feel urgent. So if you don't have this system in place where you are leveling up how you're thinking about your time and your tasks and using the Eisenhower Matrix, then the putting out the fires in your day of all these urgent things are going to push these long-term goals like weight loss to the side. And this is why I'm doing this podcast. I've seen too many of my clients have the time scarcity and overwhelm of their life because they don't have systems like this, constantly knock weight loss off of their priority list from quadrant 2 because they're constantly putting out fires because they don't have systems for how to take care of their time and their tasks. Okay. So ideally in your day, you want the other 2/3 of your time to be taken up with not urgent, but important things. So, take me for an example. Now, my podcast is not urgent, right? I do it for you guys. Yes, it helps me with my business. It helps new people find me and maybe eventually work with me. But, there's no podcast police that comes around if I don't release an episode on any given Tuesday. So it's not urgent, but doing the podcast is important. And this is why everything that you put in quadrant 2, like your weight loss stuff, for me, like my podcast, What you're going to do with these things is you are going to schedule them into your calendar. It's imperative that you make time dates for these things to be done, not just a day, but a time within your day to complete them. So I have a podcast recording schedule, and I spend a lot of time just complying with the schedule I've set up for myself. I don't care how I feel about it. It needs to get done. Because when you push off, just like those urgent things, right? When you push off what's important to you to create for your future, these long-term goals that never feel urgent, what you're doing is you're just delaying the life that you want for yourself. Each day should be spent doing the things that bring you closer to the future you want to have for yourself. We've got to stop throwing weight loss tools out the window. And again, you don't have to do everything with weight loss, right? Like a lot of weight loss coaches, we give you a ton of tools. You don't have to use all of them. You just have to use the most important ones that give you the results. Those are number one, waiting for hunger before you put food in your mouth. Number two, eating to 70 to 80% full most of the time. In order to lose weight, you're going to want to be below 80%, somewhere between 70 and 80% full. And to maintain your weight, you're going to be right at wanting to finish eating when you're right around 80% full. And that takes time. It takes practice. It takes prioritization, and it will never feel urgent to do those things. But if you just do those two things, you don't even have to make a food plan every day, honestly, right? Those are the two most important things that will give you 90% of your results. Now, if you're not sleeping and you're not drinking your water, those results will not be as optimized as they could be. But if you just focus on those two, you will. So if you need to make weight loss simpler because you have a lot of time scarcity, like legit time scarcity, just put those two items on box number 2. And every day commit to doing those things so that you can follow through with waiting to eat until you are physically hungry, and then figure out how to stop eating when you are between 70 and 80% full. The third thing I would say that helps is counting the number of overeats that you have so that you know where you're at with those on any given day during your weigh-in week. And the fourth thing I would say is to make a food plan. I do think that helps decrease overwhelm because you've already made decisions ahead of time about what you want to eat. Does it matter if you follow your plan? Not really. But it helps your brain have certainty about what's happening so you don't have to spend time thinking about food. Your food plan isn't a food trap to try to catch you not being virtuous with food, because you can lose your weight eating any kind of food as long as you wait for hunger before you eat, and as long as you're stopping before you're physically full. Okay. So that's why the Eisenhower Matrix is so important. I have an agenda for it for you as a coach, because I know that those effective tools for weight loss belong in box number 2, quadrant number 2 of your Eisenhower Matrix. You have to schedule them into your day. So, for example, I talked about this with my clients yesterday. We had a group session for the month. And I said, for me, it's kind of like these little rules I set up for myself where I say, yeah, in the morning I go out to my patio and, I mess around on the iPad. I look at my vision board. I create my plan for the day. I check my appointments. I see who I'm coaching. I'll do my Slack, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes the time gets away from me. But I made myself a deal. I do not get up from or start my day from that porch or that patio that I sit on until my food plan is made for the day. And if that means I have to, quick make the plan, and maybe I'm late and I don't shower before I meet with my clients, so be it. I don't give a shit about the shower. The shower doesn't impact my ability to meet with my clients. But if I haven't made my food plan for the day, I'm actually wasting time later on wondering what I'm going to eat. And I'm so used to having the food plan. I really enjoy having one. Making those decisions ahead of time really works for me. So I did it if this, then that. If I want to get started with my day, then I make sure that I have my food plan done every time. I don't care if I'm on vacation. I don't care if there's a hurricane coming. I do it. And it's this kind of commitment. Now, I said the plan isn't necessary, right? But, for the necessary things, waiting for hunger and stopping before you're full if you want to lose weight, you know, you've got to prioritize these and tell yourself, I do not eat unless I at least know if I'm hungry or not. Like, yeah, are you going to eat sometimes when you're not hungry? Yeah, that's going to happen. But do the internal check so that you know what the answer is. Did I eat if I was hungry? Yes or no? And then if you decided to eat anyway, then at least that was a decision you made ahead of time, right? With full knowledge. That always puts you in the driver's seat of your time and your attention. All right, let's move on to box number 3, which is the urgent and not important box. Urgent, but not important. So these are tasks that need to get done, but they don't require your specific skill set. So a good example of this is like washing your car, maybe, or like, I don't know if a car needs to get washed. So maybe that's not a great example. Maybe like, cleaning your house, like doing the dishes. Sometimes you can opt out of these things if you negotiate with your household, family members in your household, or maybe you hire a house cleaner to help you get these things done. So these tasks in quadrant number 3 that are urgent and not important, it's best to delegate these, especially if you are in time scarcity. You have a lot of pressures on your time. Somebody who is in that situation should not be doing anything in quadrant 3 if she can help it. Okay. And then finally, quadrant number 4, not urgent and not important. These are not priorities at all. Spending your time on these tasks wastes your limited time that you could be spending on tasks that move you forward with what's more important and urgent in your life. So delete, cancel, or decline these. So those are your 4 quadrants that you will be using to classify your tasks in terms of importance and urgency. So what you're going to do is take that whole list of all your to-do tasks. Then you're going to bring them over to each of the appropriate quadrants in your Eisenhower Matrix. And you're going to use those classifications to schedule into your calendar all the tasks that are in quadrant box 1 and quadrant box 2. That's what should be filling up your calendar in terms of priority. Work on items from quadrant number 1 first and quadrant number 1 second. And if you can, break them up throughout the day so that you're not spending your entire day taking care of all quadrant 1 items. Because again, that's what's going to burn you out, because the urgency of it is going to really put tension on this feeling of overwhelm. So again, this is requiring discretion, use your best judgment, but that's how you're going to do it. And hopefully you're delegating most, if not all, of the tasks that are in quadrant number 3 because it's urgent but not important to you and it doesn't require your specific skill set. And you're declining or deleting any items or tasks that are in quadrant number 4 because they're not urgent and not important. So you're scheduling them into your calendar app. So in terms of the tasks, for example, with weight loss that are in quadrant 2 that I mentioned very specifically, give yourself a time limit or a specific time to have those completed. If you're using the daily plan, that I give away to all my subscribers on my email list and I use with my clients, you should be checking off if you have completed your plan, if you ate when you were hungry, and if you stopped at the the desired percentage full that you're going for. Give yourself credit for doing all those things. What this does is it starts to increase your sense of time agency and control over your time. The other thing, tool number 3 that I want you to use that comes into play with your Eisenhower Matrix is to use a calendaring app, a digital one if possible. The problem with paper calendars is that they are specific to a location and it's not always convenient to bring it with you. I know some of you are still old school and using paper based calendars. They're very inefficient and they really don't have the capacity to keep up with you on the go wherever you are. And not only that, but they're limited in terms of who else can see your calendar. If you're using, for example, something like Google Calendar, you can invite people to certain meetings with you or events with you and let them know. And it really helps with communication and coordination of logistics within your family or logistics within your team professionally or whatever you're talking about here. So, your third tool to help you decrease overwhelm, overplanning, and overdoing is to use your calendaring app right alongside what you do with your weight loss tools. If that's using it with your daily plan, you use it with your daily plan. So, for example, when I sit down on my porch every morning, the first thing I look at is my digital planner. I make my daily plan. And I also, right along with that, right next door to it, I write down all the things that I'm doing that day. So I have a plan for not only my tasks, but I have a plan for my food. These should complement each other and they should be given the same outline and attention every day. And even if let's say you're retired and there's not a lot of have to do's on your do list, write down the things that are important to you anyway. It's just the brain will always appreciate you scheduling things out so that it has a good idea of when things are happening. And it's sort of like, I used to have German shepherds. I have this little puppy now. That's not a work dog, but my work dogs, when they didn't know what I wanted them to do, they were chaos. Like I remember taking my German shepherd to the park with my kids, which was like the worst thing I could have done. I didn't realize that my work dogs see my kids as the sheep and that they need to keep safe from other kids. So what they were doing was they were acting like maniacs in the park and they were trying to get all the other kids away from my kids, which is of course the opposite of what my kids wanted to do. And I couldn't understand why my dogs were acting so crazy. And then I was like, "Oh, they're just doing the job that they think they need to do." And I tell you this because your brain thinks that it's got the job of handling all of the logistics, the tasks, and the time in your life. When you can use a system to help your brain offload too many of those tasks, and you've got the system doing the brunt of the work for your brain can calm down about your tasks and it can go back into what it does best, which is to use its executive function to think strategically about the tasks at hand rather than trying to sort them and prioritize them in real time. When you have a system to do this ahead of time, you're just so much more ahead of the game. You're going to find tremendous amounts of relief for this. So, in addition to using a calendaring app, you can use the one that comes with your iPhone or your computer. You can use Google Calendar. I don't know. There's probably Microsoft has one. I'm not even really sure. But when you start to use that, just know there's a learning curve that comes with it. Invest some time in learning how to use it and spend some time transferring, if you're still like analog on paper, the things that you have upcoming over the next few months and put them into your digital calendar. And then put the app for it right front and center on your phone so that you remember to check it every day. And soon enough, this will just be your go-to system that is just working seamlessly every day for you. The other thing that I want you to consider doing is to create time blocking A few episodes ago, I talked to you about emotional time blocking. It's based on this idea of actual task and time blocking in a calendar. So, like, for example, the one I gave before, which is my podcasting work. I have regular time set aside during my week to do the research and the putting together of the outline of the topic of each one of my podcasts. Then I have a different time and day where I record. And I'm not going to be recording when there's other people in the house or the dog is really active, right? It has to fit in my schedule to help me have success to complete that task. And this is time blocking. I even time block in a general way, for like my laundry. My laundry gets done on Saturdays. I just find that that's the day that the other members of my family usually aren't doing their laundry. So I just like to have like other people out of the laundry when I'm trying to run a few loads through for myself, where I don't have to handle other people's who are in the middle of doing their laundry too. Okay. So set up time blocking for yourself for all your personal recurring tasks, because when you do that, then laundry, it never goes on your to-do list. You just know you always do it on Saturday afternoon, for example. So anything that's recurring should never be on your to-do list. Okay. Decide how much time in advance a task takes. And then I want you to work on your follow through to get those things done in the time that you give it. Don't let the task determine the time. You determine the time that the task takes. This way, you again give yourself the gift of completion and spending more of your time on a day to day basis being on the better side of having completed things so that you can rest and recover and chill out from the other side of the coin, you know, that is about doing and deadlines and tasks and getting them completed. We need to have both. We need to have a system for getting things done. And then we also need to cultivate the space of on the other side of having finished these things, the gift of completion. And you can easily see how when you have a system in place to get what you can get done of the most important and urgent things, then you will have an easier time relaxing and recovering from the opposite, which is the doing. So there's the doing and the not doing, and we need to have the right component of each for you to have, a nervous system that is regulated and a nervous system that's regulated with your emotions. This all makes for a human being that's better able to change your habits around food and reach our long term goals. Okay, the last step of working with the Eisenhower Matrix is to try to keep your tasks to a maximum of 3 personal and 3 professional daily. You'll see this again on my daily planning sheet. If you've downloaded it, you'll see top 3 things personal and top 3 things professional. Of course, you can do more than that, but what you ask yourself to get completed should be a maximum of 3. This creates a wider target for success for you. And whenever we make plans or decisions ahead of time about what we're going to commit to, you want your target of success to be big. You want your idea of success and being able to complete it to feel very confident, like 80% or more. I see too many people writing down long laundry lists of things that they are obligating themselves to get done with their expectations. And the worst thing is seeing that list and how little of it gets done. It's not helpful. It's not motivating. And you need to stop doing that. Restrain your to-do list on any given day to 3 or less. And I promise you, it will change your life. And the more that you can schedule your tasks after doing, sorting them through the Eisenhower Matrix, the smaller and smaller and smaller this to-do list gets, to the point where I don't even have one anymore. I really don't. I don't have a to-do list. Everything lives on my calendar. I do have, I use an app called, or a system called Trello. And I do have a running list of urgent but not important in box 2 things that I want to spend weekend time on. So one of those examples is learning my Hungarian. I'm learning the Hungarian language. I'm applying for dual citizenship. The other project that I have is sorting and backing up all of my photos and taking them off of iCloud. I have a course to do this and I want to make progress. Oh, and then the other thing is I bought this next of kin box. Have you guys heard of this? And I have a lot of paperwork to fill out to complete that. And I'm just chipping away at these not urgent, but important things to me on my weekend time. So, like, for example, on Saturday, I'll say 1 hour of my weekend quadrant 2 tasks. I don't care if it's the knockbox. I don't care if it's the photos project or studying for Hungarian, but I'm going to pick one of those and just dedicate 1 hour for those things. And that's how I make progress on these things that are never urgent, but I do want to give myself the gift of completing them so that they can be done and I have the peace of mind or the results on the other side of doing those things. You deserve that too. I hope that you give yourself the gift of working with these 3 tools to help reduce overwhelm, over planning, and overdoing. If you have any questions or you want a copy of this Eisenhower Matrix, just go over to Instagram to @Thrive in Midlife and comment with the word matrix on any of my posts. And I'll go ahead and send you the link to sign up for my email list. And then I will give you the download for downloading this Eisenhower Matrix so you can use it too. Or you can just look it up online too. You don't have to use mine. But mine does have, the extra parts about weight loss being in quadrant 2, which could be helpful for you. Okay. So I hope that I will see you over on Instagram where we can continue the conversation. And I'll see you next time. Stay focused and so long. Hey, if this episode resonated for you, then let's connect. Visit hbeardsley.com/subscribe. That's HBEARDSLEY.com/subscribe and get on the list. You'll get a free gift, periodic coaching, plus advance notice of in-person events and workshops.